Today our topic is the art of accepting death, Stoic wisdom. Death is a topic that many people avoid. It makes us uncomfortable, scared, or sad. But the Stoic philosophers like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius believe that accepting death is one of the most important steps to living a good life. They taught that death is not something to fear, but something to understand and accept. This might sound strange, but if we learn to accept death, we can live more freely, more bravely, and more fully. Let's explore why this is true, and how we can use Stoic wisdom to change the way we think about death and life. First, let's talk about why death is so scary for most people. Death is the unknown. We don't know what happens after we die, and that uncertainty can be frightening. We also fear losing the things we love: our family, our friends, our experiences, and our dreams. Death feels like an end, and it's hard to accept that everything we know and love will one day be gone. But the Stoics had a different perspective. They believed that death is a natural part of life, just like birth, growth, and aging. Everything that is born must die. This is the way of nature. If we can accept this truth, we can stop fearing death and start focusing on how to live well. One of the key ideas in Stoicism is that we cannot control everything in life. We can't control when we will die, how we will die, or what happens after death. But we can control how we think about death and how we prepare for it. The Stoics believe that by accepting the inevitability of death, we can free ourselves from the fear and anxiety that often hold us back. When we stop worrying about things we cannot control, we can focus on the things we can control: our actions, our thoughts, and our attitudes. This is the essence of Stoic wisdom. Focus on what you can control and let go of what you cannot. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in his book, Meditations, that we should think about death every day. This might sound morbid, but it's actually a very practical exercise. By reminding ourselves that life is short and that death could come at any moment, we can learn to appreciate the present and live with more purpose. Marcus Aurelius cited, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." In other words, if you knew you might die tomorrow, how would you live today? Would you waste time on petty arguments, or would you focus on what truly matters? Would you hold grudges, or would you forgive and move on? Thinking about death can help us prioritize what's important and let go of what's not. Seneca, another famous Stoic philosopher, also wrote about death. He said that life is like a story. It's not about how long the story is, but how good it is. A short life can be meaningful and fulfilling if it's lived with virtue and purpose. Seneca believed that we should not fear death because it's not something that happens to us. It's something that happens to our bodies. Our true self, our mind and spirit, is not affected by death. Death is simply a return to nature, a release from the struggles and pains of life. By accepting this, we can stop fearing death and start living with more courage and peace. Epictetus, a Stoic teacher who was born a slave, taught that we should not try to avoid death or cling to life too tightly. He said that death is like a door. It's always there, waiting for us, but we don't know when we will walk through it. Instead of fearing the door, we should focus on how we live in the room we're in right now. Epictetus believed that the key to happiness is to accept whatever happens, including death, and to focus on living with virtue and wisdom. He said, "Death is nothing terrible, but the fear of death is terrible." In other words, it's not death itself that hurts us, but our fear of it. If we can let go of that fear, we can live more freely and fully. So how can we apply Stoic wisdom to our own lives? How can we learn to accept death and live with more courage and peace? Here are a few practical steps. First, remind yourself that death is natural. Everything that lives must die. This is not something to fear, but something to accept. The second, practice gratitude. Every day, take a moment to appreciate the people and things you love. Remember, they won't be here forever, and that makes them even more precious. Third, focus on the present. Don't waste the time worrying about the future or regretting the past. The present moment is all we have, so make the most of it. Fourth, live with purpose. Think about what truly matters to you and align your actions with your values. If you live with purpose, you won't fear death because you'll know that you've lived a meaningful life. Finally, remember that death is not the end of everything. It's the end of our physical life, but it's also a reminder of what's truly important. The Stoics believed that the only thing that truly matters is how we live with virtue, courage, and wisdom. Everything else, money, fame, power, is temporary and ultimately unimportant. By focusing on what truly matters, we can live a life that is full and meaningful, even if it's short. In conclusion, the art of accepting death is not about giving up or losing hope. It's about understanding that death is a natural part of life, and using that understanding to live more fully. By accepting death, we can free ourselves from fear and anxiety and focus on what truly matters. We can live with courage, purpose, and gratitude, knowing that we are making the most of the time we have. The Stoics taught us that death is not something to fear, but something to accept. When we accept death, we can truly live. So let's take this wisdom to heart and live each day with courage, purpose, and gratitude. Let's not fear the door, but focus on the room we're in right now. And let's remember that the best way to prepare for death is to live a good life.